Sarah Martinez never looked like someone who belonged on a military shooting range. At 24, she stood barely 5 feet 3 inches tall, with delicate features that made strangers assume she worked in an office or taught kindergarten. Her soft-spoken manner and gentle smile reinforced these assumptions. What they couldn't see was the steel determination that had carried her through 4 years of mechanical engineering studies, while working nights at a local diner to pay her bills. Growing up in a small farming town in Nebraska, Sarah learned to handle firearms out of necessity rather than passion. Her father owned a modest ranch where coyotes and other predators posed constant threats to their livestock. By age 12, she could hit a target at 200 yards with her grandfather's old hunting rifle. But shooting had never been more than a practical skill, like changing oil in a tractor or mending fence wire. The invitation to participate in the Navy SEALs' annual marksmanship competition arrived through an unusual chain of events. Sarah had recently completed her engineering degree and was working as a civilian contractor at a naval base in San Diego, designing mechanical systems for underwater vehicles. Her supervisor, Commander Patricia Hayes, had noticed Sarah's personnel file mentioned recreational shooting experience. When the SEALs announced they were opening their annual competition to a limited number of civilian contractors as part of a community outreach program, Hayes suggested Sarah apply. Sarah's first reaction was to politely decline. The competition was legendary among military circles, drawing elite shooters from various special operations units. The idea of competing alongside Navy SEALs, Marine snipers, and other highly trained military personnel seemed absurd. She explained to Commander Hayes that her shooting experience was limited to hunting rifles and informal target practice, nothing compared to the advanced tactical shooting these professionals practiced daily. But Hayes was persistent. She had observed something in Sarah during their brief interactions that suggested hidden depths. The way Sarah approached complex engineering problems with methodical precision, her unflappable demeanor under pressure when deadlines loomed, and her habit of quietly exceeding expectations on every project she touched. Hayes suspected these qualities might translate well to competitive shooting, regardless of Sarah's modest background. The application process itself was intimidating. Sarah had to submit detailed information about her shooting experience, complete a background check, and provide medical clearance. She also had to acknowledge that she understood the competition's intensity and accepted full responsibility for any injuries that might occur. Reading through the liability waivers and safety protocols made her stomach flutter with nervousness. When the acceptance letter arrived 3 weeks later, Sarah stared at it for several minutes before opening it. Part of her hoped for a polite rejection that would settle the matter without forcing her to make a difficult decision. Instead, the letter welcomed her as one of only 12 civilian contractors selected to participate alongside 36 active-duty special operations personnel. The competition was scheduled for 6 weeks away, giving her limited time to prepare. Sarah had never engaged in tactical shooting, never used military-grade weapons, and had no experience with the time-pressured scenarios that would comprise the competition. She spent her evenings at local shooting ranges, trying to familiarize herself with different types of firearms and shooting positions she had never attempted. Her colleagues at the naval base reacted with a mixture of surprise and concern when word spread about her participation. Some questioned whether she truly understood what she was getting into, while others worried about potential embarrassment or safety issues. A few offered encouragement, but their support felt forced and overly optimistic. Sarah's own family had mixed reactions when she called to tell them about the competition. Her father, who had taught her to shoot years earlier, expressed pride but also worry about her competing against such highly trained individuals. Her mother fretted about safety and wondered aloud why Sarah felt the need to prove herself in such a dangerous arena. As the weeks passed and the competition date approached, Sarah found herself questioning her decision repeatedly. She watched videos of previous competitions online, seeing the fluid movements and lightning-fast reactions of seasoned military shooters. Their precision and professionalism were intimidating, making her own amateur skills seem pathetic by comparison. The night before she was scheduled to report to the competition venue, Sarah lay awake, considering whether to withdraw. She could claim illness or a family emergency, saving herself from what seemed likely to be public humiliation. Her practical mind catalogued all the ways she was unprepared and outmatched, but something deeper kept her from reaching for her phone to call Commander Hayes with an excuse. Perhaps it was the memory of her grandfather teaching her to shoot, emphasizing that respect for the weapon and steady nerves mattered more than size or strength. Maybe it was the engineering training that had taught her to approach problems methodically, breaking them down into manageable components rather than being overwhelmed by their complexity. When morning came, Sarah packed her small bag of personal items and drove toward the naval base where the competition would take place. Her hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, but her resolve had crystallized overnight. She might not win, might not even perform respectably, but she would not withdraw without trying. The guard at the base entrance looked surprised when she showed her credentials and explained her purpose. Even he seemed to find it difficult to believe that this quiet young woman was reporting to compete alongside the military's elite shooters. Sarah thanked him politely and drove toward the designated parking area, knowing that in a few hours she would discover whether courage alone could bridge the gap between her modest background and the extraordinary challenge ahead. The competition briefing room buzzed with testosterone and casual confidence as Sarah stepped inside. 47 other participants filled the space, their conversations peppered with military jargon and references to previous competitions. Most stood in small groups, clearly familiar with each other from years of service in elite units. Sarah noticed how they carried themselves with the relaxed alertness of predators at rest, their movements economical and purposeful. She found an empty chair near the back of the room and settled in quietly, hoping to observe without drawing attention. Her civilian clothes felt conspicuous among the sea of military uniforms and tactical gear. Several participants glanced her way with curiosity, their expressions suggesting they wondered if she had wandered into the wrong meeting. Master, Chief Petty Officer James Bulldog Kowalski, commanded the room's attention when he stepped to the podium. A 20-year veteran of the SEALs with arms like tree trunks and a voice that could cut through a hurricane, Kowalski had organized this competition for the past 8 years. His reputation for demanding excellence and accepting no excuses preceded him into every room he entered. The competition format was more complex than Sarah had anticipated. 5 distinct shooting challenges would test different skills over 3 days. The first day featured precision rifle shooting at distances ranging from 200 to 800 meters. Day 2 included tactical pistol work with movement, target discrimination, and time pressure. The final day combined multiple weapon systems in scenario-based challenges designed to simulate combat conditions. Kowalski explained the scoring system with military precision, detailing how points would be awarded for accuracy, speed, and tactical decision-making. Penalties would be severe for safety violations, missed targets, or failure to follow scenario protocols. The overall winner would have their name added to a trophy case that included some of the most legendary shooters in special operations history. As Kowalski spoke, Sarah felt the weight of what she had undertaken settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. These weren't casual weekend competitions at local gun clubs. The scenarios described involved split-second decisions under pressure, advanced shooting positions she had never attempted, and weapons systems she had only seen in movies. During a brief break, she noticed several participants studying a roster that listed all competitors with their units and backgrounds. When they reached her name, she heard whispered conversations and saw heads turn in her direction. One Marine sergeant approached her with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed amusement. "You're the civilian contractor, right? Martinez." His tone was polite but carried an undertone of skepticism. "What kind of shooting background you got? Law enforcement? Competitive leagues?" Sarah's cheeks flushed as she explained her limited experience with hunting rifles and informal target practice. The sergeant's eyebrows rose higher with each word, and by the time she finished, his expression suggested he thought someone had made a terrible mistake in allowing her to participate. "Well, hey, good luck out there," he said. But his tone implied she would need divine intervention to avoid embarrassing herself. As he rejoined his group, Sarah caught fragments of their conversation that confirmed her fears about being viewed as an unwelcome oddity. The weapons familiarization session that followed proved even more challenging. Participants were introduced to the various firearms they would use throughout the competition, From precision rifles with advanced optics to tactical shotguns and specialized pistols. Sarah had never handled most of these weapons, while the military personnel handled them with the casual familiarity of old friends. Staff Sergeant Maria Vasquez, a Marine sniper instructor serving as a competition official, noticed Sarah's uncertainty during the weapons handling portion. Unlike the others who had approached with barely concealed skepticism, Vasquez seemed genuinely interested in helping. "First time with a precision rifle system like this?" she asked, observing Sarah's tentative grip on an advanced sniper rifle that probably cost more than Sarah's car. Sarah nodded, grateful for the instructor's patient tone. Vasquez spent extra time showing her the proper shooting positions, sight adjustment procedures, and breathing techniques that would be crucial for the precision rifle challenge. Her explanations were clear and encouraging, focusing on fundamentals rather than advanced tactics. During this instruction, something interesting happened. When Sarah finally settled into a stable shooting position with the rifle properly adjusted, her natural steadiness became apparent. Years of precision work in engineering had trained her hands to remain steady under pressure, and her methodical approach to learning new procedures served her well in mastering the rifle's complex features. Vasquez noticed this immediately. "You've got good natural stability," she observed. "That's something you can't really teach. Some of these hotshot operators are so amped up they shake like leaves when it matters." The comment drew attention from nearby competitors who had been watching Sarah's instruction with obvious amusement. Several moved closer to observe as Vasquez continued working with her, their expressions shifting from mockery to curiosity as they noticed her steady handling of the weapon. Lieutenant Commander Rick "Viper" Thompson, a SEAL sniper with multiple combat deployments, found himself studying Sarah with professional interest. He had seen many shooters over the years, both in combat and competition, and recognized certain natural attributes when he saw them. While Sarah clearly lacked experience and training, she possessed an unusual combination of calmness and focus that caught his attention. When the familiarization session concluded, participants were given the remainder of the day to rest and prepare for the first challenge. Sarah spent the evening at her hotel reviewing the competition rules and procedures, trying to memorize the scoring system and safety protocols. She also watched instructional videos on precision rifle shooting, hoping to absorb any last-minute knowledge that might help her avoid complete failure. Her phone rang as she prepared for bed. Commander Hayes was calling to check on her and offer encouragement. The conversation helped calm Sarah's nerves somewhat, reminding her that she had nothing to lose and everything to gain from this experience. Hayes reminded her that the competition organizers had selected her for participation, suggesting they saw potential that even Sarah herself might not recognize. Sleep came fitfully that night, filled with dreams of missed targets and disappointed faces. Sarah woke before her alarm, feeling the butterflies that had taken permanent residence in her stomach since arriving at the competition. In a few hours, she would step up to the firing line alongside some of the military's most skilled marksmen. She had no idea that by the end of the day, several of those same marksmen would be watching her with newfound respect, wondering where this quiet civilian had learned to shoot with such remarkable precision under pressure. Dawn broke clear and windless over the shooting range, creating perfect conditions for precision rifle work. Sarah arrived early, hoping to settle her nerves before the competition began. The range stretched across several hundred meters of carefully maintained terrain with targets positioned at 200, 400, 600, and 800 meter marks. Each distance presented unique challenges that would test different aspects of marksmanship skill. Other competitors filtered onto the range with the casual confidence of professionals preparing for routine work. Many carried their own specialized equipment, from custom rifle cases to shooting accessories that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. She felt acutely aware of her borrowed gear and amateur status as conversations swirled around her, filled with technical discussions about wind patterns, ballistic coefficients, and ammunition selection. Master Chief Kowalski gathered the group for final instructions, his voice carrying easily across the range without apparent effort. The format was straightforward but demanding. Each shooter would fire 10 rounds at each distance, starting from the 200-meter line and working backward to the 800-meter targets. Scoring would be based on precision, with points awarded for proximity to target center and penalties for complete misses. The twist that made Sarah's stomach lurch was the time constraint. Shooters would have only 90 seconds at each distance to acquire their targets, adjust their equipment, and fire all 10 rounds. This eliminated the luxury of careful deliberation between shots, demanding both speed and accuracy from competitors accustomed to taking whatever time necessary for perfect shots. Competitors drew numbers for shooting order, with Sarah pulling position 37 out of 48 participants. This meant she would have the advantage of watching others shoot before her turn, but also the disadvantage of building anxiety while waiting. She used the time to observe different shooting techniques and note how various competitors handled the time pressure. The first few shooters were predictably excellent, posting scores that would have been impressive even without time constraints. Marine Scout snipers moved through their firing sequences with mechanical precision, while Army Rangers demonstrated the smooth efficiency that came from thousands of rounds fired in training. Each completed their course of fire with time to spare, their movements economical and confident. But Sarah also noticed something interesting as she watched. Several highly skilled shooters were struggling with the time pressure more than expected. Their natural inclination toward methodical precision was working against them in this format. She watched one Navy SEAL sniper, clearly frustrated, fail to complete his final 2 shots at the 600-meter line before time expired. When Sarah's turn approached, her mouth felt dry and her heart hammered against her ribs. She approached the firing line carrying the precision rifle she had practiced with the previous day, trying to project more confidence than she felt. The weapon felt familiar in her hands now, its weight and balance no longer foreign after several hours of handling practice. At the 200-meter line, Sarah settled into the prone shooting position Vasquez had taught her. The target looked surprisingly large at this distance, giving her a moment of hope that maybe she wouldn't embarrass herself completely. When the timer started, she focused on the fundamentals she had learned years ago from her grandfather, combined with yesterday's instruction from Vasquez. Her first shot surprised her with its placement near the target's center. The second followed quickly, also finding the scoring rings with satisfying precision. Sarah found herself falling into a rhythm that felt natural, her breathing controlled and her trigger pulls smooth. When time was called, she had fired all 10 rounds with seconds to spare, and most appeared well placed. The 400-meter targets presented greater challenges. Wind conditions were becoming more noticeable, and the smaller target size demanded greater precision. Sarah had never shot at this distance before, but her engineering background helped her make quick mental calculations for bullet drop and wind drift. Her shots were less tightly grouped than at 200 meters, but all found the target with respectable accuracy. By the 600-meter line, several competitors had begun watching Sarah with open curiosity. Her shooting style was unconventional compared to their military training, but her results were undeniably solid. She didn't move with the fluid precision of a combat veteran, but her shots consistently found their marks within scoring rings. Lieutenant Commander Thompson found himself studying Sarah's technique with professional interest. Her shooting fundamentals were sound if unrefined, but what impressed him most was her apparent immunity to pressure. While some seasoned operators were rattled by the time constraints and performance pressure, Sarah seemed to be settling into a zone of calm focus. The 800-meter challenge separated serious marksmen from weekend shooters under normal circumstances, and the added time pressure made it exponentially more difficult. At this distance, targets appeared tiny through the rifle scope, and environmental factors like wind and atmospheric conditions became critical variables in shot placement. Sarah approached the final firing line knowing this would likely determine whether she finished respectably or confirmed everyone's expectations of failure. The target was barely visible to her naked eye, appearing as a small speck against the distant hillside. Through her rifle scope, it looked like a dinner plate viewed from across a football field. She took a deep breath and tried to apply everything she had learned about long-range shooting from her crash course in preparation and yesterday's instruction. Her first shot at 800 meters missed the target entirely, drawing a few suppressed chuckles from nearby observers. But instead of panicking, Sarah made a quick adjustment to her scope settings and fired again. The second shot struck the outer rings of the target, confirming her adjustment was moving in the right direction. She refined her hold and fired a third round that struck closer to center. By her fifth shot, Sarah had found her rhythm at the extreme range, placing rounds consistently in the scoring rings. When time was called on her final course of fire, Sarah had completed all 40 rounds within the time limits and scored hits on targets at every distance. Her groups weren't as tight as those posted by combat veterans, but her consistency under pressure had been remarkable for someone with her limited background. As scores were calculated and posted, an interesting pattern emerged. Sarah's total placed her in the top 15 shooters overall, ahead of several highly regarded military marksmen who had struggled with the time pressure or made critical errors under stress. Her name appearing so high on the leaderboard sent ripples of surprise through the assembled competitors. Master Chief Kowalski studied the scores with raised eyebrows before announcing the results. When he called Sarah's name for a top 15 finish, the applause was polite but tinged with genuine surprise. Several competitors approached her afterward with comments that ranged from congratulatory to questioning. "Where'd you learn to shoot? Like that?" asked the Marine sergeant who had spoken to her skeptically the day before. His tone now carried genuine respect, mixed with curiosity. Sarah's response was characteristically modest, crediting her grandfather's patient instruction and emphasizing her beginner's luck. But privately, she felt a surge of confidence that surprised her with its intensity. Maybe she didn't belong here, but she hadn't embarrassed herself either. In fact, she had proven something important to herself about performing under pressure. Competitors prepared for the next day's pistol challenges. Sarah noticed the dynamics around her had shifted subtly. She was no longer viewed as a curiosity or potential liability, but as a legitimate participant who had earned her place through performance. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying, because it meant tomorrow's challenges would carry even higher expectations. The second day's challenges were designed to simulate the chaos and pressure of close-quarters combat situations. Unlike the controlled precision of rifle shooting, tactical pistol work demanded split-second decision-making while moving through complex scenarios. Sarah had never attempted anything remotely similar to what awaited her on the range that morning. The course layout resembled a small town constructed specifically for tactical training. Plywood buildings, shipping containers, and barriers created a maze of corridors, doorways, and hiding places where targets could appear from any direction. Some targets represented hostile threats requiring immediate engagement, while others depicted civilians who must not be harmed under any circumstances. Master Chief Kowalski explained the scoring system with his characteristic precision. Points were awarded for speed and accuracy in engaging hostile targets, but massive penalties applied for hitting civilian targets or violating safety protocols. The scenarios were designed to test not only shooting skills, but also tactical thinking and decision-making under extreme pressure. Sarah watched the first group of competitors navigate the course with a mixture of admiration and dread. Navy SEALs moved through the scenarios like deadly ballet dancers, their movements fluid and purposeful as they identified threats and engaged targets with remarkable speed. Their pistol work was poetry in motion, each shot precisely placed while transitioning smoothly between positions. Marine Force reconnaissance operators demonstrated similar prowess, their years of close-quarters battle training evident in every movement. They flowed around corners with weapons ready, distinguished between friend and foe in milliseconds, and delivered accurate fire while moving at speeds that seemed impossible to maintain. The time had come for Sarah's group to gear up and prepare for their turn. She strapped on the provided tactical vest and holster, the weight and bulk feeling foreign against her body. The pistol felt different from the rifle she had used successfully the day before, requiring different muscle memory and techniques she had barely practiced. Staff Sergeant Vasquez approached with last-minute advice, sensing Sarah's nervousness about the dramatic change in competition format. Her counsel was practical and encouraging, focusing on basic safety principles and fundamental shooting techniques rather than advanced tactical concepts Sarah couldn't possibly master in minutes. "Remember, slow is smooth and smooth is fast," Vasquez said. "Don't try to move like these operators who've been doing this for years. Move at your own pace. Make sure of your targets and focus on accuracy over speed. A well-placed shot counts more than 3 rushed misses." The first scenario Sarah faced involved clearing a simulated building where hostile forces had taken civilian hostages. Targets would pop up randomly as she moved through the structure, and she had to determine which represented threats requiring engagement versus innocent civilians who must be protected. When the starting signal sounded, Sarah entered the building with her pistol drawn and ready. The first target appeared immediately around a corner, clearly marked as a hostile threat. She took a fraction of a second to confirm the target before firing 2 shots, both striking the scoring zone with satisfying precision. Moving deeper into the structure, Sarah encountered the complexity that made these scenarios so challenging. A target depicting a civilian appeared simultaneously with a hostile threat, requiring her to engage one while avoiding the other. The pressure to move quickly battled against the need for careful target discrimination. Sarah chose caution over speed, taking extra time to ensure proper target identification before firing. This approach cost her time compared to more experienced competitors, but it prevented the catastrophic point penalties that came with shooting civilian targets. Her shots were accurate when she took them, finding their marks with consistent precision. The second scenario involved a moving vehicle ambush where targets appeared from multiple directions while she advanced across open ground. This challenge tested her ability to shoot accurately while moving, a skill she had never attempted before the competition. Her movements were awkward compared to the tactical grace displayed by military veterans, but Sarah's natural steadiness served her well even while walking. She engaged targets methodically, stopping briefly to ensure accurate shot placement before continuing her advance. Again, her conservative approach sacrificed speed for accuracy. By the third scenario, something unexpected was happening. While Sarah's times were slower than most competitors, her accuracy remained remarkably consistent. She was hitting her intended targets with precision that impressed the range safety officers monitoring each course of fire. Lieutenant Commander Thompson, who had drawn the position immediately after Sarah, found himself watching her performance with growing respect. Her technique was unpolished and her movements inefficient, but her shot placement under pressure was enviable even by special operations standards. The fourth and most complex scenario involved a hostage rescue situation, with multiple levels and numerous pop-up targets appearing in rapid succession. This challenge had eliminated several highly trained military shooters who made critical errors under pressure, either by engaging civilian targets or missing hostile threats entirely. Sarah approached this final scenario knowing it would likely determine her overall standing in the competition. The course was exhausting both physically and mentally, requiring constant vigilance and quick decisions while maintaining weapon safety and accuracy standards. As she moved through the multi-level structure, targets began appearing faster than in previous scenarios. Sarah forced herself to maintain her methodical approach, taking the extra fraction of a second needed for proper target identification, even as time pressures mounted. Her shots continued finding their marks with precision that surprised even herself. Near the end of the course, Sarah encountered a situation that had tripped up several previous competitors. 2 targets appeared simultaneously from different directions, one clearly hostile and the other ambiguously marked. The pressure to engage quickly battled against uncertainty about the second target's status. Sarah made a decision that reflected both her cautious nature and tactical wisdom beyond her experience level. She engaged the clear threat with 2 quick shots while holding fire on the ambiguous target until she could better assess its status. This decision cost her time but prevented a potentially devastating penalty. When the final buzzer sounded, Sarah emerged from the course exhausted, but intact. She had completed all scenarios without safety violations, engaged all legitimate threats, and avoided shooting any civilian targets. Her times were modest compared to tactical veterans, but her accuracy had been exemplary throughout. The scoring announcement revealed another surprise. Sarah's conservative but accurate approach had placed her in the top 20 overall, ahead of several experienced operators who had made costly errors under pressure. Her consistency was becoming the signature characteristic that separated her from more experienced but less steady competitors. Master Chief Kowalski studied the day's results with evident interest, noting how the civilian contractor continued to exceed expectations through performance rather than flash. Several competitors approached Sarah with comments that reflected growing respect for her unconventional but effective approach to tactical shooting. "You shoot like someone who understands that every bullet has a lawyer attached to it," observed one experienced SEAL, referencing the legal scrutiny that accompanied real-world shooting situations. That's wisdom a lot of operators could learn from. As competitors prepared for the final day's challenges, Sarah realized she had crossed an important threshold. She was no longer competing just to avoid embarrassment, but actually contending for recognition among some of the military's most elite marksmen. The realization was both exhilarating and intimidating, because tomorrow's final challenges would determine whether her steady performance could continue under the ultimate pressure. The final day dawned with storm clouds gathering on the horizon, adding an element of unpredictability to what was already the competition's most challenging phase. Wind gusts and intermittent drizzle would test every shooter's ability to adapt to changing conditions while managing multiple weapons systems under extreme pressure. Sarah arrived at the range to find the atmosphere noticeably different from previous days. Word had spread throughout the naval base about the civilian contractor who was challenging seasoned military shooters, and spectators had gathered to witness the conclusion. She spotted several senior officers in the observation area, their presence adding weight to what had begun as a routine training exercise. The final challenges were designed as the ultimate test of tactical shooting prowess. Competitors would navigate a series of interconnected scenarios using rifles, pistols, and shotguns in combination. The course simulated a complex military operation where shooters might engage targets at long range, transition to close quarters, combat, and handle specialized situations requiring different weapons and techniques. Master Chief Kowalski's briefing emphasized that this phase would separate true marksmen from merely competent shooters. The scenarios were based on actual combat situations faced by special operations forces, compressed into a competition format that tested every aspect of tactical shooting within a controlled environment. Sarah listened to the detailed instructions, while trying to manage her anxiety about weapon systems she had barely touched. The competition rifles and pistols had become familiar over the past 2 days, but the tactical shotguns were almost completely foreign to her. She had fired shotguns while hunting, but never the specialized combat versions used by military forces. The first scenario began at extended range where competitors engaged targets at 600 meters with precision rifles, before transitioning to intermediate distances with different weapons. Sarah's rifle work remained steady despite worsening weather conditions, her shots finding their marks while other competitors struggled with wind and light rain. But the transition to other weapons revealed the gaps in her preparation. The tactical shotgun felt awkward in her hands, its operation and characteristics different from the hunting shotguns she knew. Her first attempts were clumsy, with slow reloads and uncertain target engagement that cost valuable time. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, monitoring Sarah's performance from the safety line, noticed her struggles with the shotgun and offered quick coaching between shooting stations. Her advice was practical and immediate, focusing on basic operation rather than advanced techniques Sarah couldn't possibly master under pressure. The encouragement helped, and Sarah's shotgun work improved noticeably. As the scenarios progressed, she applied the same methodical approach that had served her well with other weapons, prioritizing accuracy and safety over speed. Her times remained slower than military veterans, but her hit percentage stayed remarkably high. Lieutenant Commander Thompson, currently leading the overall competition, found himself watching Sarah's progress with professional admiration. Her unconventional path to competence was fascinating to observe, and her ability to learn and adapt under pressure impressed him despite her obvious limitations. The most challenging scenario involved a complex multi-level course where competitors moved between different weapon systems while engaging targets that appeared randomly throughout the structure. This test pushed even experienced operators to their limits, requiring split-second decisions about weapon selection and target engagement under severe time pressure. Sarah approached this final challenge knowing it would likely determine her overall placement in the competition. She had surprised everyone, including herself, by remaining competitive through 2 days of increasingly difficult tests. But this ultimate scenario would demand everything she had learned, compressed into minutes of intense action. The course began with long-range rifle work from an elevated position, engaging targets at various distances while time pressure mounted. Sarah's steady shooting served her well here, placing shots with precision despite deteriorating weather conditions that challenged even experienced snipers. Transitioning to the structure below, she switched to pistol work while navigating obstacles and engaging close-range targets. Her movement remained awkward compared to tactical veterans, but her shooting stayed accurate under pressure that had rattled more experienced competitors. The final phase required shotgun work in confined spaces, where over-penetration concerns made shot placement critical. Sarah's hunting background finally provided relevant experience, and she moved through this section with growing confidence and improving technique. As she neared the course's conclusion, Sarah realized she had maintained her characteristic accuracy throughout the complex scenario. Her times were modest but respectable, and she had avoided the critical errors that eliminated several highly trained military shooters from serious contention. When the final buzzer sounded, Sarah emerged from the course exhausted but proud of her performance. She had completed the competition's ultimate challenge without safety violations, while maintaining the steady shooting that had become her signature throughout 3 days of testing. The scoring process took longer than previous days due to the complex point calculations involved in multi-weapon scenarios. Competitors gathered anxiously as range officials tabulated results that would determine final standings and overall competition winners. Master Chief Kowalski approached the announcement podium with results that had surprised even him. The civilian contractor's name appeared consistently in the top rankings across all phases of competition, her steady performance under pressure earning recognition among participants who had initially viewed her with skepticism. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. When Kowalski announced the overall standings, Sarah's cumulative score placed her in the top 10 finishers overall, ahead of numerous military veterans with years of tactical shooting experience. The achievement was remarkable by any measure, but extraordinary considering her amateur background. The announcement drew sustained applause from both competitors and spectators, many of whom had watched Sarah's progression from curiosity to legitimate contender over 3 days of intense competition. Several senior officers in the observation area exchanged meaningful glances, recognizing that they had witnessed something unusual and noteworthy. Lieutenant Commander Thompson, who had won the overall competition, approached Sarah during the informal reception that followed the award ceremony. His congratulations were sincere and professional, reflecting genuine respect for her achievement. "You've got natural ability that can't be taught," he told her. "With proper training, you could compete at any level. Have you ever considered military service?" The question caught Sarah off guard, but before she could respond, several other competitors joined the conversation. Their comments reflected the transformation in attitude that had occurred over 3 days, from skepticism through curiosity to genuine respect for her unconventional but effective approach to tactical shooting. As the competition concluded and participants began preparing to return to their respective duties, Sarah reflected on an experience that had changed her understanding of her own capabilities. She had entered the competition expecting to learn something about advanced shooting techniques and perhaps gain interesting stories to share with friends. Instead, she had discovered reserves of composure and competence under pressure that she never knew existed. The quiet confidence that had carried her through engineering challenges had translated remarkably well to tactical shooting, proving that fundamental skills and steady nerves could compete with specialized training and extensive experience. Therefore, drive home gave Sarah time to process what had happened and consider its implications for her future. Phone calls from family and friends who had heard about her performance through informal military networks confirmed that news of her achievement was spreading beyond the immediate competition participants. News of Sarah's extraordinary performance spread through military networks faster than official reports could travel. Within days of the competition's conclusion, her achievement had become legendary among special operations communities where such feats were rare and memorable. The story of a civilian contractor finishing in the top 10 ahead of seasoned military shooters captured imaginations and generated conversations at bases across the country. Commander Patricia Hayes was among the first to receive detailed reports about Sarah's performance and her initial satisfaction at being proven right about Sarah's potential quickly evolved into recognition of larger implications. The young engineer had demonstrated abilities that extended far beyond her current position, suggesting opportunities that neither of them had previously considered. The formal competition report landed on several important desks throughout the Naval Command structure, generating interest at levels Sarah never could have anticipated. Her consistent performance under pressure, combined with her civilian status, made her an unusual case study in natural shooting ability and stress management under extreme conditions. 3 weeks after the competition, Sarah received an unexpected phone call at her desk in the engineering department. The caller identified himself as Captain Michael Rodriguez, commanding officer of a special operations training facility she had never heard of, requesting a meeting to discuss her recent competition performance and potential career opportunities. The meeting took place in a nondescript office building where Captain Rodriguez explained that Sarah's achievement had attracted attention from military leadership, interested in understanding how civilian skill sets might complement traditional special operations training. Her engineering background, combined